I mean, I think The Wizard of Oz is it's part of everyone's life somehow or other, and I think it's part of my parents' life, and I feel like it's gone through generations. So to be a part of something that is so iconic, and also to be able to play one of the iconic characters, I guess, is it's very exciting. What I like about it is I think you can't go back and remake something, because The Wizard of Oz, the movie, and also the books, but The Wizard of Oz, the movie, was one thing, and I think it's very important that we don't just try and remake that, because it's so special and it's so iconic. So what's brilliant about this is that there's elements of, anyone who's even just seen the movie once will know that there's elements of it that they've taken and they've put such a brilliant kind of twist on it. So it's really exciting. It's sort of like Wizard of Oz 2.0. I play Lucas, who is, I'm the equivalent of the Scarecrow, but it's a kind of a big twist on the Scarecrow. You meet him at the beginning of, at the middle of Act 1, and he's chained to a post, and he's taken down by Dorothy, and he has no idea how he got there, and has no memory whatsoever. So they've kind of twisted the whole thing about not having a brain to actually suffering from amnesia. It's really exciting, I guess. I mean, I don't really know what to. I'm kind of excited. I'm just excited for people to see how we've taken something and shifted it, and just to see. And it's a very clever kind of nod to the original and to the original book. But I think it's modernized, and it's dealing with, it's fantastical, but also manages to be so real, and so it's kind of very exciting. So you meet Dorothy at the beginning in Ep 1 in Kansas, and then she happens to be transported through a tornado to Oz. And she lands in what originally is the Munchkin village, and they've done a sort of retake on it. So the Munchkin are actually children, and is then sent, because as she lands in Oz, she ends up encountering one of the witches, and that doesn't go very well, and then ends up sort of being sent off on this journey, and is exiled from Munchkin Land, and is sent off down this sort of yellow brick road, and encounters people along the way. But the difference between the sort of the original and this is that they've done it that it's the Scarecrow and Dorothy that are sort of on this journey together. And the Lion and the Tin Man have sort of separate stories that then eventually sort of all become intertwined. Well, that's what I think is really interesting about this version of Dorothy, is that I think it would have been very, very easy for anyone to write a retelling of The Wizard of Oz and have her be incredibly naive and incredibly sweet, and actually they've written a girl who is somewhat naive and who is lost, but she's got such a fire in her, and she's afraid, but she won't show it, and so there's a vulnerability to her that she seems to keep to herself an awful lot of the time, which I think is such an intelligent way to go with it, because otherwise we're just trying to remake something that's already been done. So the fact that they've taken her and they've actually, I mean, she looks like Lara Croft. You know, they've sort of put her in sort of army pants, and she's not afraid, which I think is great. I mean, she is afraid, but she won't show how afraid she is. So I think as well, you know, for an audience watching that and seeing the journey that she goes on, you know, she has to go through so many, I mean, she has to sort of, she experiences so much. So it's interesting for an audience to see her arrive in Oz and be so lost. And then by episode 10, she's kind of made of steel. When you meet Lucas in episode 1, obviously he has no memory and no idea who he is. And she takes care of him because she's a nurse back home, so she takes care of him. And I think for Lucas, he doesn't really understand why this stranger, who looks like nothing he's sort of ever seen or can place or anything, is being so caring of him. So there's an immediate kind of bond that seems to happen between the two of them. And she protected him and she saved his life. So he will forever protect her. And so it's kind of a vow he seems to make. And with that, obviously, I think, well, obviously with that, it turns into something else. And they end up falling for each other. And then it kind of meets a very tricky end. Dorothy brings a gun from the police car, and if you actually think about it, the fact that nowadays guns are so, to us, are so, I mean, most people seem to have one or have used one or have seen one being shot. And so I think the fact that she brings one to Oz where magic is kind of, you're not allowed to speak about it, it's forbidden. So the fact that she brings this gun to Oz and that no one understands what this thing is, and the fact that it contains so much power, I think it terrifies a lot of people. And they can't seem to understand that it's not magic, that it's actually something, it's a weapon. And I think it's actually really interesting about how they've chosen, the writers have chosen to write something like that in, you know, just with everything that's going on with gun control and stuff. I think it's kind of interesting for all of us to kind of stop and think this is actually, you know, Lucas says one of the lines he says where he says, you know, that I'm just one man with a sword, but you are much more terrifying. You're the most terrifying with that. And it just suddenly kind of, you know, just one shot and someone can die. And I think that's what's so great, is that she comes in with something like that, which is from the other world.